Hello, good evening to you. Welcome to Business Focus. It's your business-oriented discussion every other Monday at 6 p.m. only on TV3. My name is Alfred Okansi. This evening we're live on DSTV channel 279, also live all across the world on 3news.com, on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook. You can also join us with your comments as we go on. It's a talk about the mid-year budget review. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is giving a strong indication of possibly introducing new taxes during the mid-year budget review. But we'll look at other aspects of that particular proposal. Founder of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, is urging African governments to incorporate tax cuts across some sectors of the economy to motivate individuals and businesses to stay committed in meeting their tax obligations. We'll also look at both sides of the proposal and the way forward as we talk about generating internal revenue to finance many of the development projects that government has outlined within its period. 19-year-old senior high school graduate of Methodist Girls High School, Vanessa Aisha Liman, brushed off the challenge from 9 other finalists to win the maiden edition of the presidential pitch for startups. The young entrepreneur based in Golu in the Upper West region will be joining us live tonight here on Business Focus. All these and more here this evening. And remember, we're also going to be looking at what the GIPC has been talking about, why their quarterly review of the FDIs, the foreign direct investments coming into the country, has not been stated as yet. Let's find out what has been making headlines in the world of business over the 1 week period. We'll also look at both sides of the proposal and the way forward as we talk about generating internal revenue to finance many of the development projects that government has outlined within its period. 19-year-old senior high school graduate of Methodist Girls High School, Vanessa Aisha Liman, brushed off the challenge from 9 other finalists to win the maiden edition of the presidential pitch for startups. The young entrepreneur based in Golu in the Upper West region will be joining us live tonight here on Business Focus. All these and more here this evening. And remember, we're also going to be looking at what the GIPC has been talking about, why their quarterly review of the FDIs, the foreign direct investments coming into the country, has not been stated as yet. Let's find out what has been making headlines in the world of business over the 1 week period. Also, those are some of the headlines of the stories that made the news in the world of business over the period. Remember, there's a lot more news on 3news.com. You get a lot more details in there. If you just join us, this is Business Focus. Already joined me in studio. Edu Sarkodie is a financial analyst and also a lecturer of economics at the University of Ghana Business School, and also with Economics Department at the University of Ghana, Legon, and then also with the Institute of Fiscal Studies, IFS, in here. Thank you so much, Mr. Sarkodie, for your time. Good evening to you.
It's always a pleasure, but I'm speaking in my individual capacity. You know?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, we just, before we get into the discussion, just for a bit of a reminder, the mid-year budget review, which is expected to be presented by the finance minister, all other things being equal later on within the month, that particular 2018 budget was presented last year with some fiscal targets. Let's set or establish the background for this discussion with a reminder of some of the fiscal targets that were captured in the 2018 budget presented last year. Let's take a look at this. So inflation rate as at May 2018 was 9.8%. The Bank of Ghana rate, that's the policy rate. That's at the time as of May 2018. The projection, what you see, the overall GDP growth rate of 6.8%, non-oil GDP growth rate of 5.4%, end period inflation rate of 8.9%. Then average inflation rate of 9.8% and fiscal deficit of 4.5% of GDP, and primary decline as a surplus 1.6% of GDP. And that's what you see. The gross foreign assets are to cover at least 3.5 months of imports of goods and services. It's one of the also targets captured in the 2018 budget. So what you see there, I'm going to ask you which of those targets you project would be reviewed in the budgets that is going to be presented later in the month, the mid-year budget review. But what do you see? The average inflation, for example, 9.8 has already been achieved from what you see now.
Yes, the inflation target is likely to be reviewed given the fact that the factors that cause inflation is usually out of our control. We've been talking about the production cost. Recently, when there was an announcement about the increase in petroleum prices, it affected transportation. It has also affected inflation. So once government has decided to deregulate the downstream petroleum industry, and the fact that that's because the government is not willing to subsidize. So obviously, any change in the international price would have the effect on Ghanaians. So inflation is likely to be reviewed. Remember that it was around 9.6 before the increase in petroleum prices, and then it rose to 9.8%. So any further increment in the international prices of crude oil would usually, obviously increase inflation. The fiscal deficit is very likely to be achieved, not because we have raised enough revenue, but because government has decided not to spend so much. And if you take a typical example, the capital tax, the capital expenditure, the capital expenditure is having a reduction in terms of figures. And if you express it as a ratio of GDP, it is really going down. And so if you are not spending and then you are experiencing budget deficit, it's very likely, of course, you can just decide not to spend. If you're not spending, then you obviously hit your target. So the budget, the fiscal deficit is likely to be achieved. The oil GDP is good news. We've discovered some new fields, which when they come on board would increase our GDP. But of course, I've always placed emphasis on the non-oil GDP because that is where employment can be generated.
You can measure real growth.
Exactly.
In there.
Exactly. And we expect it to grow by 5.4%. I don't think we should expect any major change in the non-oil figure. Perhaps if there's going to be any change, it should be the oil GDP. When we have discovered more, fields. The exchange rate stability maybe is quite okay. But recently we had some news. I think the NPP and NDC, they were comparing whose regime, whose first term and all that. I don't think that the argument should be about whose regime had the worst, depreciation. I think that as Ghanaians, we should be thinking about how to, revamp our economy, because the fundamentals of our economy is what is causing this exchange rate to depreciate. You can talk about the long term and the short term, but the long term effect has always been the fact that Ghana is an import-dependent economy. And so far as we depend on our imports and we are not able to add value to whatever we produce, we are not able to export more than we import, then you expect the exchange rate to depreciate. So, I think NPP and NDC should spare us this debate and look at pragmatic measures that can shore up our cedi. That is what we are looking for. The other areas look good. I think I'm very happy about the macroeconomic stability that we have enjoyed, because job creation is what everybody needs now, and government alone cannot generate all the jobs that we need. Because if you take the data, the 2015 data, just about 10% of all the employees are in the government sector, and so you can see the amount.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so then we need the private sector to come on board, and if you want the private sector to increase production and employ more people, then you need to stabilize your economy and develop the infrastructure. Because if you ask me to go to a certain village to set up a business there, and there's no water, there's no electricity, I don't think I would want to go there. So the whole environment, the whole doing business indicators that we have, how many days does it take us to register our businesses? What is the insolvency? How investors are protected in the country? These are all signals that we should be looking at in order to, bring the private sector on board to be able to generate the needed employment. Right now, I think it's the employment that is, lacking. And I think
really, and that's why I would agree with you if you make the point that the business world is really not concerned about what happens in the political economy. Okay, so the back and forth.
Yeah.
What the ordinary Ghanaian or the businessman who is watching us at the moment, who is creating employment, is interested in is to create the needed environment for businesses to thrive. As to whether who did what and who did when, I think it's really none of their business, is it?
Because we need, construction. Did you know that construction has been underperforming over the period?
True.
Recording negative growth rate. It means that the amount of construction we have this year compared to last year, this year's figure is less than that of last year. So, and we can see it clearly. I mean, your area, you can see the road are very bad. My area,
Absolutely.
the road is bad. They are not constructing our bridge.
These are factors that influences business,
production, yes,
and cost of production.
Yes.
And some of these things, we push it away into the arena of development and less of business. But look, if I have a bad road, and my vehicles are going on that road, and I'm having to change spare parts every month. That adds up to my cost of production.
Exactly.
And eventually, as a businessman, I'm going to pass it on to the end user. That's the consumer. And that's you and I.
Yeah.
Clearly, it has a rollover effect on everything we've been talking about.
In addition to that, you realize that when you go to a typical village or just any area where there's production and the road is bad, it will cost the producer so much to transport the goods from the farm or from the point of production to the market. And these are going to add to the cost of production, increase prices, and then affect the welfare of consumers.
Right. Now, let me do this quickly, because I'd like to get into the area of introduction of taxes, because the finance minister has given a very strong indication of either increasing existing ones or introducing new ones, as against what we witnessed previously with the abolition and reduction of about 14 taxes in that 2018-2017 budget. But Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta is giving a very strong indication that there's a possible introduction of new taxes during the mid-year budget review. Now, the Finance Minister over the past months indicated the need to review these tax measures to make more responsive to current trends.
I think we are about 8% behind, so we still got the month of June to be able to do that. But there's seasonality in these things, so 8% is nothing that you can claw back on. And then your issue was?
We still have a problem with leakages in our revenue generation as a country. What are you going to do, or what measures do you intend to introduce to deal with this in the mid-year budget review?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it's a good question because when we talk about revenue mobilization or leakages, who is creating that problem? And I think that problem or issue is being created by ourselves. And so how do we as a people begin to acknowledge that and be personally responsible for protecting the public purse and say no more? And I think that's really for the challenge for the country as we look at the Ghana Beyond Aid. Are we going to be impaling ourselves because of little corruption, or are we going to really acknowledge that given even in these 18 months what government has done, abolishing taxes, reducing electricity prices, bringing free SHS, some roads in place. Now the citizen has to look at his role in the republic and say, for how long am I going to sit on the side, or am I going to engage as a citizen to push this country ahead? And I think that's an interesting conversation we have to have as a nation. Your question was on clarification on whether, and I think maybe segueing from what I just said in terms of what government has given in a real sense of meeting our social contract obligation with the citizen, is now to open up the books and say, okay, where do we want to go? What do we need to pay for? And therefore, how do we reframe our tax system or means of collecting revenue so we go ahead? So I don't really want to look at it as an imposition from me, but in we sitting down and saying, okay, where are we going and what should we do? And that, in a stronger, socially stable environment is how business thrives.
So that's kind of Reta Finance Minister there talking. Now, I asked them a question about sealing the revenue loopholes in revenue generation as a country internally. He talked about measures he's put in place. But I've been joined in studio by Winslow Sakefio. He's the head of capital markets at First Bank. Winslow, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's great to have you. Now, let's look at the measures that have been put in place to deal with this revenue leakage. The finance minister acknowledges that it's a critical question to ask at this moment. Have there been enough measures put in place to deal with this? Maybe let me introduce you to Winslow on this one.
I think so far, most of the measures have been worked. When you look at the revenues that have been reported, they are still well short of the target. And because the revenues are not coming in, government too is not spending on expenditure, as Sarkodie mentioned. So we have a dilemma here. If you decide to increase taxes, the populace will complain. But that is what we need before we can start spending on government projects. So it will be a bitter pill to swallow, but I think that is the most likely thing to happen.
So I'm looking at it this way. Maybe it's a chicken and egg situation, as you always put it. I don't really know which one you can argue comes first. So are we going to be seeing further measures as you analyze those measures, which the finance minister admits that we need to do more to seal the leakages and revenue mobilization as a country? Why don't we institute more measures to deal with the loopholes while we put in measures to rake in more revenue, introducing taxes, taxing, the already small margin that we have, and when the revenue is coming in, we're also losing it through other avenues. Would it make sense to seal the loopholes or introduce new taxes to rake in more revenue? I don't know if I'm making sense.
I think both. It depends on the management style of this administration. We have a long-term measure, which is about sealing the loopholes, and a short-term measure, which is about introducing a new tax. This government abolished a number of taxes which they thought were, impeding production.
On the nuisance taxes.
Nuisance taxes, which I completely agree with them. Of course, they can introduce a new tax in an area where they think is very good, but effectively, we should be thinking of sealing the loopholes. And if you want to seal the loopholes, I have been told that about 80 million Ghanaians that are supposed to pay taxes from the ports and from every other aspect, only 4 million pay. So the remaining 4 million do not pay. And what do we do to them? Somebody goes to take the goods from the port, tells the officials that he's taking it to Burkina Faso.
In fact, a statement attributed to the finance minister says 6 million potential individual taxpayers in Ghana, but 1.5 million out of 6 million actually pay.
Actually
so
pay.
So it means 4.5
Something
million
are not paying.
Are not paying.
Yeah. So it is about a political will. It's about taking the bull by the horn. It's about, taking pragmatic measures to prosecute. It's about, strengthening the institutions. The institutions that are supposed to collect revenue, the GRA, we can talk about the SEPs, we can talk about all the other agencies, their officials. We can, give them some incentives. It can even be a commission base. You collect this amount of revenue, you have this percentage. Let's motivate them with that. They also need resources, because one of the tenets of tax collection is about efficiency. If I spend 100 cedis to collect 80 cedis, then it's not worth it. So sure. The efficiency, the resources, the logistics, cars, computers, whatever they need to collect the taxes must be provided to them. Because if we spend, say, 100 million to resource them and they're able to bring in 1 billion cedis, it is a lot of money. We will not even need to be talking about borrowing from the Eurobond market and all that if we are able to seal the leakages. That is even those who are supposed to pay. We have been talking about the informal sector. About more than 80 million Ghanaians are in the informal sector, and none of them pays income tax.
Well, that's why, you can talk about measures now being put in place to identify them. Because
exactly.
You can only quantify what you can measure.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have all of these,
and that's a long-term measure. It will take some time. It's a long-term measure. We have talked about property tax. How many property don't we have at East Legon, airport residential area? If you are there and nobody comes to your house to collect it, do you expect them to get up and go to the offices and say, I have 1 billion worth of house, so
but
this is
funny.
my tax?
I see
if you don't go
in
to
fact,
them,
we actually
pay.
play the GRA asking people that, look, whatever you owe, we've dashed it to you. You just come and declare. But still.
But what is the motivation? Do you expect somebody to walk to your office and go and pay? No. I think that I talked about the resourcing the revenue collecting agencies. If you give them cars or whatever they need to move from one house to the other, I think that they would. If I'm in my house, if you don't come to me, it's very less likely that I will come to you. But if you come to the house, I will pay. You come and quantify the house, the items going around.
But we see them, they tax GRA officers.
They come to those who live at airport residential areas and ask them if they come.
I had a friend of mine share with me that he has a huge mansion in Kumasi.
Yes.
And he was thinking that his property tax was going to be maybe in the thousands.
Yes.
And they bring him a bill of 500 Ghana.
500 Ghana cedis.
So he said to himself that, look, I'll add additional 500 because he just couldn't understand the calculation that was.
And how often does he even pay that? Was it once in a month? Once in a year?
So it's just a clear situation. But so, have we achieved, or has government achieved the objective of abolishing these taxes? Because the reason for doing them, they had reasons for that. From your own analysis, have they been achieved?
I think they have. When you consider the taxes, they were really affecting business negatively. And it was in a bid to mobilize more taxes, but the taxes were becoming very punitive. When you take the percentage of people not paying tax, if the government can get about half of them paying, there wouldn't be a need for new taxes coming in. But the way the Ghanaian terrain, it is difficult to collect the taxes.
What's the difficulty?
You see, first,
we've been having this conversation for a long time. Knows how long? Since I was in SHS or SSS, doing those days.
Yeah.
Over 15 to 20 years now.
Yeah.
And we're still having a conversation of how difficult it is. It's not rocket science.
It is a will. It's not that difficult.
You see,
it's a will.
We have to look at resourcing GRA.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go to developed countries, the GRA, that's one of the most important sectors in the economy, because without the taxes, you can't do anything. So we need to resource them first, and then we need the political will.
Yeah.
Because immediately you start enforcing the tax rules, the populace will complain. Nobody wants to pay tax willingly. So you have to force them to pay. And that is what we are not currently doing.
People pay bills using mobile money.
Yes.
Ask GRA if they have a short code. Yes, because I've talked about efficiency in collection.
Right.
And then the logistics. We are in the age of telecommunication. If Rwanda, you are in Rwanda, you can pay taxes online.
Absolutely.
Rwanda is second when it comes to doing business in Sub-Saharan Africa. Just second to Mauritius.
Yes, actually they are 41st globally.
Exactly.
But they are second
on the
continent.
And you live in Ghana, you cannot pay taxes online. How many forms do you fill before you are able to pay your taxes? a number of them, who has got that time. You know, Togo is even doing better than Ghana in terms of tax performance. Togo, Kenya, Mali, they are doing better than Ghana in terms of tax performance. Our tax revenue to GDP is just 16.5%, way below the target of 20% in the sub-region.
So what do we do?
Enforce the laws, resource the GRA. They should come out with innovative ways. I talked about the short code for mobile money. In addition to that, they can bring out, I talked about internet payment, e-payment of taxes. Resource them, get them vehicles, let them move from one house to the other, go to their residents, those who own properties, let them pay. Property tax alone can finance the free SHS.
Well, and that's why we probably will see these GPS, Ghana Post GPS, and measures put in place, because you need to identify before you can tax.
Yes.
I think that has to be acknowledged.
Yes.
Winslow, to you as well, what's the way forward? Because there's best practice, examples that have been cited on the continent. Let's not go too far. But what has to be done? Forget the political will, do what you have to do at the expense of the vote you will win? Do you see that really happening?
You see, it will be difficult for government to lose votes and enforce the tax rules. But that is what we need. If we don't have the political will, it wouldn't happen. And if we want to look at votes, then tax codes will never be implemented in Ghana.
Well, there's another school of thought on this whole taxes, because a founder of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, is actually urging African governments to incorporate tax cuts across some sectors of the economy. I was at a conference where he spoke. Just take a listen to a brief of his submission.
I might not really pay you tax for 5 years, but when my tax is due, you will collect your own taxes. And when you tax people so much, then that's when people find avenues of dodging to pay those taxes. So the less you charge, the more you can widen your net and collect a lot of taxes.
Is a position you agree with?
Yes, I agree with him. Few sectors of this economy are overtaxed. You talk about the Laffer curve. The more you tax, your domestic revenue will increase up to a certain point and decline.
Yeah.
And that is why this administration abolished a number of taxes, and I agreed. You see, we should just widen the test so that everybody contributes something, even if it's 5 cedis. If you have 8 million people contributing 5 cedis, you get a lot of money. But if you Ghanaians, say 500,000 or 1 million Ghanaians are overtaxed, and that is going to impede production. So I agree, perfectly agree with him that we should not overtax certain sectors. We should just widen it up, open it up, so that everybody can
it's become more of like an economic chorus, widen the tax net. We've been talking about it, don't we know?
And I
I
told you that we have short-term measures and the long-term measures. This tax net widening is a long-term measure. We need to go by it systematically. But resourcing the GRA, enforcing the laws, punishing people who evade and avoid tax, it's not a long-term measure. It's something that the president can decree now, this evening, and say whoever is caught at the port.
What's preventing him of governments gone by and president from doing that?
They will. They will. We ask Rwanda, what is the Rwandan president? What magic is he performing? I heard from the social media that this car, what do you call it?
VW actually.
Yeah, they're assembling that car in Rwanda.
Yes, they're in Rwanda.
We have Christo Kojosafu here, Kantanka cars. We're not even minding him, you know. So we
that conversation we'll have it later.
You know. So we need to get it straight. I think that Nana Addo cannot do it. His Excellency Nana Addo cannot do it alone. The supporting ministers, the sector ministers, and everybody. And I think that even the opposition parties, NDC, can come out and support the president in this area. When we get the revenues and we grow the economy, and then when we get to election time, then you can have your divided, policies, campaign promises. But right now, it is about Ghana. Right now, it's about the growth of the economy. We don't want to sit down.
Let's look at this sector. Just give me a wrap of what the situation, the year-on-year growth, at least in the first quarter of 2018. Let's start off with agric, industry, services. These three areas for today.
Yes, the sectorial performance is not encouraging so much. Agric 2.8%, something is going on wrong there. Livestock is okay, but fishing, I don't know what has happened to the fishing industry. You know, negative 8% is so abysmal. Negative 8%.
So you wanted to come in here.
The issue is the fish stocks are going down. So the sector is being hit. And you know,
as a result of a lot of factors, climate,
yes, but there's also overfishing too. Yes. You know, sea is not that regulated, so fishermen go in
and
fish
oil production.
Yes, the oil production too is affecting the fishes are now going.
And the illegal forms of light fishing and all of that. We don't really see that.
We should have thought of that. That discovery of the oil might lead to the decline in oil production. But what measure did we put in place to cushion ourselves? If we don't take care, we may be importing fish from even Togo and other countries.
It's something we already
do. We do.
Construction.
Okay.
Construction in the industrial sector, the mining and of course we have oil, so mining will be doing well. But construction, very poor. You know, I think we should be doing more. The roads must be constructed so that movement could be easy. But finance and insurance, you are there. Finance and insurance, negative 7.9, almost negative 8%. That is very, you know, disturbing because you need the finance, you need credit from finance and insurance. So if you are in an economy where the finance and insurance is recording negative growth rate, it means that the value this year is less than the value last year. And that is very bad. The non-performing loans.
That is the heart of the financial sector not performing. You know, we had a bit of an issue with the economy, and then the non-performing loans shot up. And it took the banks a very long time to even stabilize the situation, because the non-performing loans were increasing to the point that, I mean, at a point we had some banks with around 50% non-performing loans, and that's about half of your loan book. And now it looks like it's cleared a bit, but it is still a problem area.
So for me, the finance minister admits that the leakages in our revenue generation sometimes can be blamed on us as Ghanaians.
Yeah.
But then the way to deal with that is that as human beings, ordinarily you take advantage of weak systems. You institute punitive measures to deal with it.
Exactly.
What do you make of that? Finally, and then we'll go into the commodities.
You see, punitive measures would work, but the backlash is what is not allowing the government to do it. We have a system where virtually everything is politicized. So you decide to enforce taxes, you have the opposition coming in, you have other stakeholders coming in. But as Sanko-Agyei has said, if we can all agree that for taxes, let's not do politics with it. If we have to enforce it, let's enforce. And then it will get everybody on board.
Great stuff. Let's finalize this conversation with the commodities. Now, how's it looking? Gold, oil, cocoa. 3.
Unfortunately, they are all going up. For cocoa, it's good for us. I mean, we expect the harvest in Ghana to improve. So if prices are going up, it's good. We also have gold going up. You know, currently there's the tariff war that is developing. Even though it's not having a very significant effect on economies, it looks like investors are a bit worried. Unfortunately, crude, the story is not too good. The prices have started shooting up again. And it's because OPEC promised to increase production, but some of the members are not producing to the level they promised to. So we still have supply shortfalls, and that is what will push the crude prices up going forward.
Well,
and you know that would,
government.
Yes, it would also affect our inflation. You know, if crude prices go up and fuel prices need to go up, then
it affects every other thing.
But government benefits.
Absolutely.
Government will benefit.
In terms of revenue.
But so just the other day you said you would expect that government sometimes would absorb some of these expected increases on prices of petroleum products to cushion
and reduce
the
levies and taxes.
Absolutely. Once you lose revenue.
But government who doesn't want to reduce the taxes from the petrol price build-up. So
perhaps because they've already abolished a number of taxes, and they will need this one to cushion them.
Gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much. This is just the first half of our discussion ahead of the mid-year budget review by the Finance Minister. So next week, we continue with the next half of this. Thank you. Grateful. Edusa Kodie is a lecturer at the Economics Department of the University of Ghana, Legon. But here in his personal capacity as an economist, Winslow Sakifio is the head of capital markets at First Bank, also joining us as financial analyst as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'll be back shortly after this quick break. You want to stay with us because the young lady from Volu is here to tell her story. 19 years of age, winning the first ever presidential pitch, actually having the president donate his salary to her. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back to Business Focus here on TV3. Now, 19-year-old senior high school graduate of Methodist Girls Senior High School, Vanessa Aisha Liman, brushed off the challenge from nine others finalists to win the maiden edition of the presidential pitch for startups. I just wanted to take a look at what happened on the final day and the pitch of the others whom she brushed off to win this prize. So the competition actually was organized by the newly created Business Development Ministry, which saw over 2,000 people submit their business ideas, 2,000 of them. I'm going to get into what I was talking about early on, but Vanessa has joined me in studio. It's good to have you. Hello. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You had the president donate his salary.
Yes.
To you. Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, before you came in here, we were just having a conversation about you. And for those who have been watching Business Focus, you can actually attest to the fact that we celebrate young graduates here on this platform. So was really expecting you to be here, 19 years of age.
Yes.
Wow. I know you've been telling your success story all over the period.
Yes.
But there's someone who is watching us for the first time. So tell me who Vanessa is.
Okay, as Really said, I'm Vanessa Aisha Liman, 19 years of age. I completed high school last year, May. That's Methodist Girls High School. Yeah, and I'm from the Upper West region, Golu to be precise. Yes, and I'm from a family of 4, and I have 3 brothers, and I'm the last born and the only girl. So it all started after I completed high school, and I was idle at home, nothing doing. Mm-hmm. So normally you have to wait 3 months for your results.
Absolutely.
Yes, 3 to 6 months for your results. So I was idle, had nothing doing. I decided to sell my mother's product.
So, and what you're saying is that your mom does these things already?
No, she doesn't do this. She's into shea butter.
Shea butter.
She does shea butter. Oxano Forever. She's into shea butter, baobab oil, hair conditioner, shampoo, cosmetics. Yes. So I decided with my friend, we decided to go shop to shop, friends, go offices to market the product to sell to them. So through this, I discovered should I say talent of being a good marketer? Yes, wow. I realized I was a good marketer. So we also used to partake in both trade fairs, local trade fairs organized by the Trade and Industries. Yes. So it was when this year, February, when we partook in the 22nd International Trade Fair. That's at Trade Fair itself.
I see.
Yes. So I was walking around and I saw people with different kinds of products. Yeah, and I was like, why don't I come up with my product, brand it, and start selling? Because I had a fair idea about cereals. That's instant cereals. My mother used to make them for me when I was back in SHS. So I decided. Locally
made cereals.
Yes.
Not the ones she did it herself.
She did it herself.
What kind of cereals were they?
This one.
This one?
Yes. Instant cereal made of maize, coconut, skim milk powder.
I see.
It's instant. So you just pour a glass of water, warm water.
It's a diauniani, so she.
Yes.
That's what they say.
Yes, just pour warm water to it and you're good to go. But most of the cereals in Ghana, produced in Ghana are not instant. Yeah, normally you have to prepare it for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, like Tom Brown. Yeah, sure. But my cereals are instant cereals.
Instant.
Instant. You can eat it raw.
I see.
Yes.
So you just and it's nutritional. I see, because with all what is in there,
yes,
no
maize,
additives,
no
nothing
additives, yes.
to it. You see, what's interesting is that this is in the Upper West region.
Yes, Upper West. Yes.
It's not the Greater Accra region where you have all the. Walk me through the process, how you do this. what we are saying now?
Okay, it's baked. It's just baked. Yeah, that's what I can say. It's not, it doesn't go through the machine and stuff like that. It's just baked in an oven. That's all. That's how we get this. We grind the maize, then we add what we have to add to it.
So you know, this is indigenous.
Yes, indigenous. Yes.
Process of preparing all of this.
I have the big size, but I forgot to bring it.
Don't worry, we're okay with this, as viewers can see this very clearly. So this is instant cereal maize.
Yes, maize and
Neslac. It has to be some lac somewhere.
Yes, yes.
What is this one?
This is wheat crunch.
Wheat crunch.
Wheat
crunch.
Wheat.
I see.
Yes. Made of whole grain wheat, low cholesterol milk butter, honey and raisins. Yes.
Interesting. And you put all of them together?
Yes, I put all of them together.
And this is all through
this
traditional.
is you eat it like cornflakes. You see the way you eat cornflakes, you add milk to it. Yeah, that's how you take it. And this is a health product. Yes, because it has wheat. Wheat has fiber in it, and I use low cholesterol milk butter, which has no fat in it, and also honey and raisins. So the raisins serves as a sweetener, so you don't really need to add sugar to it. And there is honey in it as well. So you just fetch 8 tablespoons, then you add your glass of milk to it. When you take it, it makes you very satisfied. It makes you drink a lot of water too. So it can last you for, let me say, 6 hours without eating. It makes you very satisfied.
This one, it will take your mind off hunger.
Yes.
I want us to go through the products, very quickly. How about that one?
It's the same thing.
It's the
this
same.
Is the big size. This is the small size.
So are these just the two that you do?
Yes.
For now.
Yes, for now. But I have other products coming on board. But I want to focus on this first. Then later, in the near future, I introduce other ones. But I want to introduce millet, because wheat is not produced in Ghana. So I intend on substituting the wheat with millet to form another healthy cereal, breakfast cereal.
Very interesting. So you see, this idea came from what you say. You just walking through the stands at the trade fair, and you started asking yourself questions as to why you can't do what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
What are some of the challenges that you faced after you had this passion to do this, and now we're saying this? What did you go through?
Most of the challenges was just finances. I didn't have, even though I started with just 500 cedis. 500
Ghana cedis.
Yes, that was my first batch of production. It was just 500 cedis. And it's profitable because you make 3 times what you invest.
True.
That's like 1,500. But at a point I got stuck because I had the raw materials there. I had a bag of maize, bag of wheat, but I didn't have the money to finish it up into finished goods. That's putting it in containers and sealing, labeling. At that point, I got very stuck with that.
Wow. And so how did you overcome that challenge? Just for viewers?
Well, I sold what I had and reinvested it in it. Yes.
You didn't spend the money after you got it.
No, I didn't.
That's a tendency with all of you. You start something, you see some small profits, then you start it. So you really invested the money after selling the first.
Because I wasn't doing it. At a point, I just wanted to do it to get money for myself. But I realized that I wanted to go international. I wanted to be a big company on my own. So I thought about the future, not about today. So instead of me spending the money, I reinvested. 19-year-old
dreaming about a global business right from Ghana. So it's already on the market, I guess?
Yes, it's already on the market.
And you can get it anywhere?
Not anywhere. Yes.
Specific places?
Yes. But if you want my product, just send me a message on Facebook, Vanelim Enterprise, VANELIM Enterprise. Just send me a message. I have pictures of my product. Just tell me the one you want and we can deliver it to you.
Do you have employees or people who work with you to do this?
Okay, I only produce on a small scale.
Okay.
Yes, not big. I don't really have, but now that I have gotten the funding, I think I'll just go. I have a factory.
Absolutely. You have 75,000 Ghana cedis in your account, 50,000 prize money, and the president's 25,000 out of his salary for you. That must be feeling good right now. But we celebrate you as our mover for this Monday. And I want to say thank you, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll do what we can to support you in your business. Thank you. Grateful so much for joining us this evening. 19-year-old Vanessa Aisha Liman winner of the first ever presidential pitch for startups, joining us in studio from Golu in West Sisala district of the Upper West region. On behalf of the rest of the team, I want to say thank you for spending your Monday night with us here on Business Focus. We are getting into News 360. Thank you. My name is Alfred Okansi. Have a good evening.